The special relationship I had with my paternal grandfather sometimes succeeded in illuminating in flashes the darkness that was gathering over my adolescence. I can't say I ever loved him particularly, but at least he never go down criticism and psychological torture reserved for me. The morbid relationship that my grandmother would have established with me in her case never went beyond a smile, a word of esteem, some banal reflection of my anomalous life that was never diverted, like the ones I got from the rest of my family. Each time my grandfather's time on earth ended too soon, and perhaps this helped me my memory of him. Um, According to what I have learned all these years, it is never too early to get out of the way. In a world where the years do nothing but complicate relationships, add pains, feed useless hopes that are soon disappointed or confused with each other. What made my grandfather, in my eyes, a special person was the fact that ever since I met him I always pictured him as a sick person. He suffered from chronic pneumonia, needed an artificial respirator to survive his oxygen starvation spells, and couldn't even take a short walk outside the house because he couldn't handle the fatigue. As a child, I dreamed of being like him, gentle, measured, optimistic despite no longer having an active life, and even moderately cultured. Moderately cultured. As a child, he had just finished elementary school, but he was interested in news and natural sciences. He indulged in gossip about neighbors and passers-by, but what harm could he possibly do if he stayed indoors all day behind a window pane? The night he died, we got a call home in the middle of the night. My grandmother screamed in terror, begging my father to hurry up to his house to transport his father, sorry, to the hospital. He was not new to these flash shelters, not so until the end. Less than a month later, my parents prayed this time as not already come, at only 72 years old. I was sorry not to have paid him a last farewell, because during the last few weeks he had almost always been hospitalized, and I had not been able to see him on my usual Sunday visits. I didn't cry when I received the news of my grandfather's death. I hardly even regretted. The outside world had already taken off, and my grandfather was just one figure in among many, in a bunch of interchangeable characters in which I wouldn't be late to replace him with another fictional figure. I would have liked to have him resurrected from the coffin with some paranormal power of mine. Yes, it taught me that in the cemetery my grandmother ordered like a fury to the grave digger to open the coffin and reveal again a gloomy, emaciated figure of her husband. It seemed to me that only one will superior to the others was enough to make that old man rise from the coffin and return to the world of the living. The grandmother gave a show. She screamed. She scratched her face. When it was my turn to offer my condolences, she clung to me and squeezed me tightly. "We are left alone. Dad is gone." All those who had mourned with them. We were a small crowd of people in the courtyard, in front of the apartment building where the grandparents lived. Of course, it was a slip of the tongue, but I drew back in disgust and remembered thinking, if you think I'm mistaking that most of my mother for even worse beast, you're wrong. Origin taught me that my parents had forced me to participate in the affairs of funerals. What was the point of being there, all together walking around the town, exhibiting in public a corpse which no one cared about? In church, then, the pantomime continued in even darker shades. My father had quarreled with my aunt, his sister who lives with their family in Rome, because he said she hadn't rushed to her father's bedside quickly enough. When I sat down, I arrived at the parish next to my cousins as discreetly as possible. My father scolded me, forced me to get up, and forced me to sit on the good side of the family. I obeyed, but inside I enjoyed myself a lot. How far the banal melodramatic skills of my parents reached! Like my grandmother, he too was very keen to persevere with family grievances and feuds until a few years ago. full of resentments that often fed on minimal pretexts and let go of the fundamental ones. He considered the point of honor one of his fundamental characteristics. Too bad it wasn't worth much in terms of personality and credibility. After the funeral, both, I let my mother understand, gasping as I expressed myself to them, that I would have preferred not to steal more time from the study and leave that room so crowded with strangers, with the steaming cups of coffee and the air of circumstances. Poor thing, he is still smaller, he is still too young, and doesn't understand that he is indelicate. He is being indelicate. Judge, my aunts judged shaking their heads and advising my mother to take me away. I understood all right. I understood that I didn't want to be a part of all those social conventions, not that I outraged my grandfather's memory, but I have always been very slow to mourn, and what are usually called the great misfortune of life. The grandfather began to miss me years after his death. I began to miss him several years after his death, when it was already dust in his rotten wooden sepulchre. See you in the next video.